You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk, or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
Do you need a car? Been shopping only to be turned down because of bad credit, low credit, no credit, bankruptcy, or divorce? Guess what? Today's your lucky day, because now you can buy a car, truck, or SUV, just about any vehicle. It's true. Bad credit doesn't matter. No credit doesn't matter. Bankruptcy or divorce, it just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, your job is your ticket to your new vehicle. We're Auto Credit Express, and we've helped thousands of people just like you. Antonio H. told us, great company, got me connected, and the day I went in, I drove off in the car I wanted. 100% worth your time. Need a car? Get started now and drive off as early as today. Just text FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911 right now to get started. That's FINANCE, FINANCE, to 357-911. Auto financing the easy way. Text FINANCE to 357-911.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your healthcare? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their healthcare. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your healthcare, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your healthcare while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures. Saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to For Immediate Release. I'm Liz Neuer-Feld, and I am joined tonight by my partner and co-host, Billy O'Reilly. Good evening, Billy.
How you doing, Liz? How's it going? Where are you tonight?
I'm shoveling out. I actually had about 6 or 8 inches in Larchmont, New York. It turned into be a beautiful afternoon with the sun out and snow everywhere, and I was just laughing thinking about how we have a snow day these days no matter what happens. I know it's icy and treacherous in other parts of Westchester County and northern New Jersey, but I don't know. This seemed like a day that people could have been up and about and doing their thing. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, we had a snow day as well, and I guess we had about 9 or 10 inches, and but we went out and plowed early this morning, and by 9 o'clock everything was cleared. So we could have had schools open. No question, but that seems to be it. I wonder if that's insurance. Do you think it's an insurance thing? Because when we were kids, maybe you'd get a snow day every 3 years. I mean, yeah, maybe. We get about 9 a year. It seems like now. I don't know if that's as common for everybody, but we get a ton of them.
Well, when I was growing up, we had a middle school principal, and his name was Rick North, and he was from Canada, and his nickname was Nanook the North because we never had a snow day, and I mean never. So I do, and a lot of this now is I guess people in New York City are livid, the parents, because the mayor called a snow day last night, and I don't think we even had a trace. They didn't get an inch. It's sort of all in preparation for, or I don't know if it's the unions. I don't know if it's the teachers who have to drive in, or the DPW guys who do the plowing and stuff. But the fact that they call it a snow event and it's 2 inches of snow, we got to get some perspective here.
I think that's right. And New Jersey called, there was like a snow state of emergency or something. I think I don't know if I mentioned to you on this show earlier. We had a kid in our town growing up that used to throw water on the superintendent's steps so they'd ice up. So when he'd come down in the morning, he'd hit his backside. And it worked once, and then after that, I guess he figured it out. We never had another snow day again. I think he cost us 3, but it was a great idea.
But wait, did I just hear you say when we plowed this morning? Are you a snow plower yourself? Do you have a snow plow or a snow blower?
I have a snow blower. It's a big and very heavy one. And it was given as a gift, and it's a godsend. The only problem is one tire moves quickly, the other one doesn't move at all, so it's wrestling with this 400-pound beast every inch of the way. But it still gets it done. It's still better than a shovel. So it was, But anyway, everything's shut today. It's slow start in New York and in New Jersey. I guess in other parts of the country, we shouldn't complain. The tornadoes down south, and that was just terrible, the Alabama situation. I mean, all the people killed.
And I guess completely unexpected, out of nowhere, which tornadoes generally are, but they don't live in a tornado zone.
Yeah, it's the same story, the same story over and over again. It's just so sad to see. So I guess we got lucky up here, and then the Arctic stuff is obviously coming into other parts of the country. So it's gonna be cold, but I guess, spring will come eventually, and we'll complain about that somehow. Too much pollen. The pollen count today is an emergency.
Actually, isn't it nice, though, that it's still light out at 5:45 at night? I mean, that to me, and never mind what season it is, it's just the darkness at 4 and 4, 4:30 or 5 just makes the days so grim. So I just love that it's lighter, and this week we'll have daylight savings time. So I'm looking forward to that. Sure.
Yeah, no question.
So
you think Jerry Nadler's at it, I guess. I guess we'll take off. I think you last spoke about the Cohen hearings, and did we talk about the Cohen hearings last week? I think we did. And then what the Democrats would do with it. I guess Nadler's going all the way.
Well, and listen. First of all, I think he wouldn't, even if he didn't have any pressure to. But this is what he and his colleagues have been waiting for a year. And frankly, they ran on this in the midterms. So I guess after Cohen's testimony, he figures he has Trump dead to right on, I guess, particularly on obstruction of justice, lying.
I would think they have that already, and I guess the big question is whether it's going to hurt them more than it helps them. I mean, they'll get an impeachment if they want it in the House, most likely, but they're not going to get ratified in the Senate unless Mueller had something, really bad on the Russia. I would think anyway. So I guess they're looking to force the vote and put the senators on record. I guess that's the strategy.
Yeah, I guess so. Do you have any idea what the timetable is here? So I think they're looking for documents that cross, multiple offenses. I don't know if there's a delivery date for the documents to the committee.
Yeah, I don't know if there may very well be. I don't know whether it's been announced or whether they're keeping that under the vest. But I would think again they could get them in the House. I mean, there's enough things that have occurred that are impeachable. And as you know, impeachable is a very wide open, set of circumstances that can result in impeachment. It's arbitrary, it's political, it's up to those sitting in the House. And there seems to be plenty of fodder for that if they want it,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see that at the very same day that Nadler came out with this, there is a new poll out that has the president's approval numbers up to 46%, which actually have been, I guess, steadily increasing since the State of the Union. I think even going back to December or so. So how do you reconcile those two?
Yeah, and we talked about that last week as well. I still think that Americans are seeing, and you know where I am with this president. I'm not a huge fan, but I think Americans are seeing him trying. With the wall, with border security. No matter, they say the wall, 60% of people oppose the emergency decree, and I don't think that's constitutional either. But I think he gets credit for the effort. I think people want a secure border. I know I do. I suspect I know you do. I think most people do, regardless of their political backgrounds. And so I think he gets credit for that. Even with North Korea, nothing happened there, but I think he gets credit for trying. And then when the left comes out there and makes fun of him all the time, it negates any negative impact on Trump, and he ends up gaining something from it. But I'm not really surprised that his numbers are going up. But I think the other part of it, and I'd love to get your take on this, Liz, is that the Democrats seem to be committing utter suicide. I mean, with the positions coming out with, and I hate to say her name always, but the Ocasio-Cortez type things. But you had those 6 leading Democrats for president, vote against the Born Alive bill. And then, the 6 of them also signed on to the Green New Deal, which would, of course, it's estimated now at $93 trillion for the first 10 years, about $600,000 per household. It's just madness, and there's a lot more than just green stuff in there. It's all about, giving, it's just, classic kind of leftist rhetoric. And those 6, of course, are, Bernie Sanders, no surprise, Kamala Harris, Kirsten Gillibrand. Who else is in there? Gillibrand, Cory Booker,
Bernie Sanders.
He signed on both. I mean, those 2 votes alone. Well, one's signing onto a resolution. One was an actual vote to block the Born Alive bill. read to me like political suicide. Your take? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well,
in the old days, it would be.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, in the old days, those things would kill you. Maybe in this new news, new media world that we live in, maybe they can survive it somehow, and they get credit for looking passionate or something. But they get credit for backing and opposing insane initiatives.
So I agree with you completely, and I think particularly when it comes to the Born Alive bill, which I don't know who gave it that shorthand name, but that's exactly what it should be called. And I think that's if any Republican, I don't care if they're running for, garbage collector or president of the United States, should we talked about this last week. First question to any Democratic opponent is, where are you on this bill? Yes or no? Never mind the semantics, and we've got to get some yes or no here, because that's what a vote is. It's up or down. So we don't need the qualifiers, right, and all the nonsense. How would you vote on this? Because and that to me, bottom line, says more about a president or presidential candidate than anything else. But the Green New Deal is a joke. It's a joke. And I think one of the things that is a joke about it is it actually, unlike a lot of other legislation that's teed up to start a conversation or to, at least it's somehow, with an understanding that you're going to get to some compromise. These guys teed this up actually thinking that there was a chance that there was going to be a reasonable discussion on these things without having any idea what the consequences would be economically, from a business standpoint, practically, to get a bill the elements of this stuff actually implemented. It's ridiculous. It's so reckless and irresponsible that it's laughable.
Right. I did a column on it. I said that Ocasio-Cortez, that is, proved once and for all that one can be both a freshman and sophomore at the same time. I mean, it's just you're kidding me.
Good. I've missed it.
Oh, no, but that's if you look at that, it's not just the craziness from the we're going to stop all carbon emissions in 2030 and redo every house in America and every structure and bridges to Europe, et cetera, in Hawaii. But she tacks on all the everything is a right, the guaranteed right to everything, to, work for life, housing, healthcare, food, everything. I mean, we're a very magnanimous nation and we take care of one another. And if people are hungry, we do feed them and we should. And, when people run into trouble, and we do that through food banks and through food stamps, and you hope people will get off of those, when they can get back to work. But the scenario that she lays out in that proposition is, it's nuts. That's the stuff of Maduro. And the fact that the 6 leading contenders for president in the Democratic Party back that is mind-blowing. Imagine what a gift that would have been, when you were working for President Reagan or President Bush, in the elections. But, you also see, Liz, is the new Democrats, the more moderate Democrats, are beginning to push back, and I find that really interesting. I'm really curious to watch that.
Well, we every week we give a little update on how we think the Democratic primary candidates are doing. But we have to add, today we've got another candidate in the race. John Hickenlooper, the governor of Colorado, is announced that he's going to get in, or is in, or I guess he set up an exploratory committee. I don't know what his platform is. I don't know how different it is from anybody else's. But do you see any more? And you had some news coming out of New York on a potential candidate. Yeah.
Governor Andrew Cuomo's name is popping up again. He said that he's not going to run, and then he said that he's not going to run if Biden runs. And I think it's more media driven than anything, but you don't know whether it's media driven because somebody in the governor's staff said, "Why don't you ask us this question at the presser?" or whether he just got asked the question. But his name is suddenly in play, which is interesting because he's more of a. In New York State, he's done a lot of things in the hard left, but the hard left considers him a moderate. I don't, but the hard left does. And so, I think that's why his name is circulating. It's, who else might be around? But, I find it amazing. Even like Jerry Nadler is now considered one of the Democratic moderates. Like these people who are always, pretty screaming liberals are suddenly, being cast aside as unprogressive. It's an interesting dynamic playing out on that side.
I guess the last time Cuomo had officially made any comment on this was in another interview a while ago when he said, well, Biden might get in the race. It was kind of a non-answer answer, as if that were the threshold, decision point, barrier for him to getting in or not. Do you think that there is a subset of the broader party that's really pushing Cuomo to get in, or this is just Cuomo driving Cuomo?
Yeah.
What does he add other than obviously that he's from New York State, which is significant?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and by the way, there's a very good column in The Atlantic by Edward Isaac Dover, who we interviewed on the show a couple of months back. He was the White House bureau chief of Politico, and then went over to The Atlantic. I think we spoke with him just while he was heading to The Atlantic. He did a very, very good, lengthy piece on Governor Cuomo that was done, I think, in a few different parts, mano a mano, and it spells out some of these things. But I think to Cuomo's credit and the Democratic Party side, he's a guy who gets stuff done. Now, I opposed a lot of what he did in New York, and you may have as well, but I worked directly on campaigns against him, a couple of them, and on various issue campaigns that were against initiatives that he was pushing. But he does get things done. I mean, people call him a bully, and yes, he is a bully. And people call him a megalomaniac, and yes, he's a megalomaniac. And people say he doesn't collaborate with the public or with communities when he pushes something through, like most recently, the Amazon deal. Or you could say with the new Mario Cuomo Bridge, a bridge that he named after his father, which is not too far from us. But he does get stuff done. He does. He's a maddening character. He's a killer. I mean, he's a killer. It always reminds me of the part of Jaws where Shaw, I'm trying to think the captain's name. He talks about a shark and he says he's got dead eyes, a doll's eyes. He says Andrew Cuomo has those eyes, but he gets things done, and he's gotten a lot of progressive stuff done in New York that other governors weren't able to do, and he could take credit for it. I mean, he did, and again, I posed a lot of these things, but he did the $15 minimum wage. He did the abortion bill, which is a travesty. He did the gay marriage thing, which was fine with me, frankly. He drove a lot of the stuff through. He's rebuilding LaGuardia Airport. He's working on Kennedy Airport. He did the Mario Cuomo Bridge. He's pushing a lot of stuff through. And so what his argument would be, and people could see this in the Atlantic article, is other candidates talk a good game, but I've actually done it, and look at the record. It's a pretty decent argument. I always thought he would get in, and I was a spokesman for the last couple of candidates against him, and in this year, 2018, or last year, 2018, I always assumed he was going to jump into the presidential pack, and I've been very surprised that he hasn't done it already. And I had begun to believe that he wouldn't, and I still don't think he will. I think it's late, but I think he's got a rationale. He also can say you need a I don't want to use this word on the internet, but you need a prick like me to run against a prick like him. And I think it's a great sales line because he and Donald Trump are cut from the same cloth. They're both really tough New Yorkers who are friends, by the way, and they have been for years. Andrew Cuomo was Donald Trump's real estate lawyer when Mario Cuomo was in office. Donald Trump was at Andrew Cuomo's bachelor party, but they beat each other up, in the press, for effect, and it works for both of them. But I think there's a good rationale there that you need a tough guy like me to fight a tough guy like him. But but the Democrats hate him. The progressives hate his guts. They hate him, which is a strong word, and I'm using it because it applies.
So let's talk about that because we know there's so much to unpack here. Well, I'll start at the end. We know that they hate him because Cynthia Nixon at least made it to a primary against him, based on the fact that she had the backing of all the progressives. Would you say that's why? Because it's interesting. He has many issues of very progressive, and that's a polite record, right? So it's on. So he's a deal cutter, like you said, or he gets things done because he makes deals. Sometimes back room, sometimes front room. He did it. We know he did it with the Republicans early on in the Senate when he was happy to see the Senate majority. A Republican majority in the state legislature when he first got elected, right? I mean, he buried those. I mean, he beat them at their own game better than almost anyone I've ever seen, right?
That's right. That's right. I have never seen anybody leverage power better than Andrew Cuomo. He knows every bit of power at his disposal as a governor. And it's a big state, 20 million people here in New York, and it's a very, it's a robust government. And he knows every lever of power in the hundreds of agencies in New York, and he uses them all the time.
So how does he let's go nationally now, with his record, how does he get elected in purple states where he will 100% support the Born Alive bill, and we know that because he was the first state to pass it. Here in New York was the first state. They did it at the state level before, right? Secondly, he's got the highest taxes in the country, right? Third, he's got out-migration. Everyone's leaving New York. I mean, the numbers are, people leave here because the cost of living, how horrible it is for small business to get anything done here. They can't afford it. How about his position on guns? I mean, he's got some of the most aggressive anti-gun legislation. So I'm just looking at the other states that he would need to win, that maybe Hillary did win or that he couldn't win because of positions that he's taken. Just at a very practical level. Because he might talk about being able to work across the aisle and getting deals done, but his record is really left.
It is. He would have to, and again, I'm not sure he's going to be a candidate, and he might even, I could still see a possibility where he would run with a Joe Biden. And he's saying he's supporting Joe Biden and won't consider running as long as Biden's considering running. I would think Cuomo would have to make it a you-know-what show the same way that Donald Trump does it. And Cuomo is somebody who's able to do that when you can't have a straight debate with him. He comes across like a Mack truck. He just, you bring up a late-term bill and he'll just tell you basically that's fake news. You know what I mean? And he'll just come and like go after you.
You're right. Right. And
you raise really good points, but his style
yep.
is like Trump.
You're right.
Where he'll just change the subject.
No, I think that's probably the most important point here.
You've watched them long enough. Yeah, you've watched them long enough. It's the way, I mean, you could say about Trump with all the, if it's verifiable, he's lied 9,000 times or something, how many presidents can get away with that? And the answer is one. And it's because he just never stops.
One at a time.
And that's
one at a time.
Cuomo just never stops. He comes at you like he doesn't sleep. This guy is a pure political machine. And there's something intriguing about it. And I mean, as someone who's worked against him, I kind of admire his skills, even though he can be very frustrating as my governor. But his passion, he just keeps coming at you. And he doesn't care what it looks like sometimes. He just goes and does it, because he wants the box checked. He wants the accomplishment. And so, I think it would be an interesting scenario. I don't know whether Cuomo would play in other states. He comes across like Luca Brasi. I mean, he's a really tough guy. He talks like a thug. And he makes a lot of mistakes when he does live news conferences. So he tends to manage his press more carefully than say Trump does. But I think he could be a force. I really do. And I'm not a fan, but I think he could be a force. But we'll see what happens there.
Well, I think I agree with you on all those counts, and then I guess I'd have to contradict myself and say that an angry candidate running against Trump wouldn't be the winner, and I'd be wrong, right? Because I mean, when you look at the Democratic pool, and I've said, Elizabeth Warren, just people are exhausted. from all the hysteria, the negativity. And I thought, not that we're going to elect necessarily some, joyful, Pollyanna, but I do think that a sunny disposition, and we're not going to get Morning in America, but it would be a welcome change to the dialogue that's going on right now in both parties. But I'll tell you, Cuomo wouldn't be that candidate, that's for sure.
Yeah, although, can you imagine him on the stage with we had the 17 Republicans, including Trump, and Trump was, I remember watching that first debate, and I kept singing that nursery rhyme in my head, or maybe it was the Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other. And that's Cuomo. Cuomo would chew up and spit out, I think, anybody on the stage if he went full Andrew Cuomo. Not because he's such an artful, debater. He doesn't have the rapier wit or the great intellect. It's just that he has that Trump approach where he just dominates the stage, and he says mine. And the interviewer asks him a question, and he'll say, "That's the stupidest question I ever heard. What we really need to be talking about is," and he gets away with it. And he's very intimidating, and we'll see.
Yeah.
What he would argue is that he would argue that he's kept taxes, middle class taxes he cut in New York, and that he's capped the property tax with 2%. There's a lot of holes in that. You could rip that up, but he could run on that. He basically runs as like a fiscal moderate and a social progressive, and strong on foreign policy, strong on Israel. That would be his lane. So it'd be kind of it would be like the not scary fiscal guy, or not too scary. I think there's a lane there.
So what's his relationship with Biden? Do you know?
Yeah, he's a big fan of Biden, and Biden's come in and met with him a few times in the past year or so. And what Cuomo says is that Biden has his support. He's already endorsed him, and he said that he wouldn't consider running if Biden's in the race. And so what I'm wondering, I was thinking maybe those liabilities that you talked about would be enough for Cuomo to play it really smart and run as a number 2 initially. But I talked to a couple of reporters about this yesterday, and their thought, and they follow this more closely than I do. They're on the beat, and their thought is that there's no way that Biden would get away with that. You'd have to have a woman on the ticket or somebody other than another white man, which is a shame, I think. The most qualified people should be on the ticket regardless. But that was the thinking. But it could be a tricky move. And for people who don't know Andrew Cuomo's past, his father, who gave a riveting speech for liberals in 1986 during the Democratic Convention, and suddenly shot to the top of the consciousness of the left in America, they referred to him as Hamlet on the Hudson, because people were always asking, when's Mayor Cuomo going to run for president? Because he was a beautiful speaker. He didn't care for his policies, but very, very bright guy, true intellectual. Could talk, catechism and Greek mythology as much as he could fist fight in a back room. And so Andrew Cuomo was always his father's campaign manager, starting at about the age of 20 or 21. And they called Andrew the Prince of Darkness. He was the tough guy, the enforcer. And they said, which I think Isaac Dovere says in his piece, Mario Cuomo was like the debate type guy. Andrew Cuomo was muscle cars, he was more street type guy. And so Andrew Cuomo wanted his father to run very, very badly. And, it became a bit of a joke that his father wasn't pulling the trigger. And at one point during the budget debate in New York, I think it was in 91 or 92, the year that Bill Clinton ran, Cuomo was expected to run. Andrew Cuomo had a plane prepared for him on the runway in Buffalo to fly to, a presidential debate someplace. And there was a live camera on it. It was like a live camera all day. I know CBS had it on because I had a client who was supposed to debate against he was the against position. He was the Bush chairman for New York State. And so we were watching everything that was going on very carefully because we had to go into a studio and debate somebody about it. And of course, Mario Cuomo never showed up and ended up running for re-election and lost. And, to George Pataki. And so the thought was always that Andrew Cuomo wanted to surpass his father and wanted to make up for that loss. Andrew Cuomo also begged his father not to run for a fourth term, which was his undoing. And so the thought would be that Andrew Cuomo would never run for a fourth term. He's in his third now. And that he would run for president to try and take the Cuomo brand all the way to the White House. And so now we're in a position where people are talking about Cuomo going for a fourth term rather than running for president. I don't really buy it. It seems odd. But that's the background. That's the background with the Cuomos.
Well, no, and a shrink, you on par with the Bush, the field days of the press that we've had with the dynamic father-son between the Bush 41 and 43, living up to expectations, father shadow, blah, blah, blah. This would be, of course, a scenario even better than the Hillary and Bill scenario to be analyzed ad nauseum. So what's the time? We can move on after this, but what's the timetable for Cuomo's decision, do you think?
I don't think we've got a lot of time. What are we in now? I mean, what do you think? We're in March. I think it would have to be, I mean, money-wise, whoever's going to be the candidate can raise the money. Okay, so say he's waiting for someone to stumble. He could probably get it in as late as July or August, I would think. If it just turned out to be a left-wing mess, he's got some time.
He's got cash right now because he didn't spend much in his last race, but he'll actually spend some, I guess he didn't have to, but just for, promotional purposes to get his record out there, but he's a fierce fundraiser. We know that.
He raised more than $100 million as governor of New York. And, and in New York, it's, more than 2-to-1 Democrat to Republican. It's, like 2.2 to 1 Democrat to Republican. And he raised $100 million. He wasn't taking any chances. And,
nope.
And also, he's also shown, and I feel like I'm talking up Cuomo against character, but there is a discussion here to be had. He also showed that he could beat back the progressive challenge in New York. He annihilated Cynthia Nixon. I thought that was going to be much closer. He beat her 6.35.
Mm-hmm.
And without taking prisoners, he went right after her. He didn't play that carefully. He just, he's just a I was going to say a Mack truck, but he'll just roll right over you. And that's what he did to her. No apologies, and he doesn't stop for apologies, and he'll tell you that. So it would really be interesting. I was going to say, it's almost, you could say it would be a Frazier-Ali fight, Trump against Cuomo, but it would really be Frazier versus Frazier, or Foreman versus Foreman. I mean, they're very much alike. They're really alike. And I wonder if they know too much about one another.
Well, it's interesting how Kirsten Gillibrand becomes even more insignificant with every passing day, and this would just seal that. My understanding is that she and the governor don't have any relationship at all. She's certainly appealing to her message is different, her platform is different, her profile is different. So it's not that she hasn't carved out her own lane, but I think she would, the minute he got in the race, she'd be irrelevant. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think Kamala Harris made her irrelevant right off the bat.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, just from the point that she's done more things in her life than Kirsten Gillibrand has. She's got, and she's also, besides being a female Democrat, she's multi-ethnic, and that, as much as I hate that being a factor, and I mean that in the most loving way for the country, it's a factor in the Democratic Party right now. You need to be as many things as you can possibly be to fit those demographic boxes. And she beats Gillibrand hands down. I mean, Gillibrand is a white blondie from New York, who was a tobacco lawyer, Well,
I was in Washington. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Liz.
Well, I was in Washington for some meetings late last week, and it was great. I hadn't been down there in a while, and I say it was great because I hadn't been down there for a while. But I saw Cory Booker. I actually ran into a number of senators. I even saw Elizabeth Warren in the airport. She was dashing through in her sweats and things on her way to catch a flight home late Thursday night to Boston. She's a petite little thing. But I saw Cory Booker in the underground, shuttling around from Senate building to Senate building, and he was beaming. And I was with a couple of folks, and we stopped him just to say hello and wish him luck. And he is strapped. He looks fantastic. He looks as energetic as a teenager. He is strapped. I didn't realize how tall he is. He's got quite a. But I'll tell you, and this might sound like a silly thing to say, but he walks like a winner. He's obviously feeling. He does, and I think he also beats Gillibrand hands down, just up front. He brings, to your point about record and Kamala Harris, and Cory Booker has a record himself, coming out as the mayor of Newark. But just in another way too, he's got a nice way about him.
You're exactly right. There is a presence about him, almost like when you have I remember, you run into a bunch of, in New York, you bump into celebrities once in a while. And I remember walking by Alec Baldwin, and it was like celebrity, big guy, and like, you just get that instant feel. You definitely get that from Cory Booker. I did a news conference with him about, 10 years ago, just after he became mayor of Newark. And I remember it was for some children's program. And I did a press conference with the old mayor there, Sharp James, I guess it was. And, who was kind of old school. He was like an old fiefdom type guy, and it was kind of a sleaze feel around him. But we did the press conference with Booker, and the most interesting thing happened. And again, he was, as you described, he's tall, he's a good-looking guy, he's vibrant. You can sense it. We started the news conference, and we had it was my show. And I was really happy about the turnout. We had a lot of cameras, and I forgot who the client was, but anyway. We're there, and suddenly the audio goes out. And, Mayor Booker is at the microphone. And it's like an awkward pause. And so I'm waving for the AV guys, because it was the City Hall guys who were, running the audio. I'm trying to get somebody's eye to fix the audio. And Booker says, I'll take a look at that. And in the middle of the press conference, 50 people plus maybe 18 reporters, he gets down on his hands and knees and starts fumbling with the cords. And all he could do is fail. All he could do is fail. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's a headline the next day if anybody wants to take the shot. It's like, it's like he gets down on his hands and knees and he's playing, the feedback from all the chorus and the rest of us. And then the thing goes back in. He goes, oh, great. And he gets back and keeps talking, right on point. And I remember thinking, this guy's amazing. He's in the other party, but this guy's got talent, and this guy's got a confidence that you just don't see every day. And then from what people have told me, he came in with great promise, and then really didn't do that much in Newark, and kind of all the promise fell by the wayside. But he does have that feel about him. I completely agree, and I've seen it.
So, he did. I don't know. He had a long-standing relationship with Mark Zuckerberg, or what that was about, but wasn't he the mayor who lured Zuckerberg to invest $100 million in the New York City schools, or something to that effect? Which was a big, Zuckerberg coming out, Zuckerberg's, foray into public service, I guess, or community service, community act, right, at Facebook. I think that was Booker who got that done.
I don't remember that, but it could very well be, which would certainly be an accomplishment. I'm sure he got some things done, but he was, people, when I say people, I just mean people kind of in the industry that I know, they'll say he changed, now he changed, yeah. He's just a politician now and the rest of it. Yeah. But, who knows?
He was horrible with the Kavanaugh hearings. We know, listen, that's going to come back to haunt him as it should. Horrible.
Right, yeah.
So what do you think is...
So we'll see.
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, go ahead. What was your question, Liz?
Well, I was going to ask you politically what you think is going to happen, or if there'll be any effect with Trump's emergency declaration, the national emergency declaration about the wall, building the wall, which is going to go down to defeat Rand Paul as the latest Republican senator to announce publicly that he's going to vote against it. Do you think obviously all the Democrats are against it. But do you think going forward that there are any repercussions to this, any consequences, or any Republicans are going to pay a price for voting against the president on this, or that everyone just sort of feels like, of course the president was going to do this. We know the Senate wasn't going to approve it, and at least everyone's on record speaking their piece.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I assume the way it plays out is, right, it gets vetoed and then he overrides in the Senate. You know, well, neither house will come up with enough to block it. So he'll get what he wants, but then the courts will step in. So let's see, what does that mean for everybody? I guess the ones that voted against, you know, they could show some independence in their reelection runs. I mean, some may pay a little bit of a price, but Trump will end up fighting probably with the Ninth Circuit again, which doesn't hurt him very much. And he can rail against the liberal justices. And, so yeah, I don't think anything ends up really happening, but everybody's postured themselves, you know, to their own benefit. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. It does. And I don't think it's going to matter one bit. Trump
that happens in Washington.
Yeah, it's not going to matter.
And then, you know, and there's some very good lawyers who think that Trump has a good case, that he does have the executive power to do it, and they've argued that. So, you know, you just don't know. It'll go up to the Supreme Court, and we'll see what happens. But I think you know, I think like you know, Rand Paul had no choice but to go out there, and he's been a pretty good Trump defender, but you know, his whole game is principle from the libertarian side, and I think he had to do that.
Yeah, he hates executive orders. He hates legislating by executive order, which is exactly and he used to come down on Obama so hard for that. So he's being consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. And I wonder what happens. You know, do they stop it now because they have 4, or is Trump going to force those senators to go on record? I think he forces them to go on record. I think his political guys are going to force the senators to go on record.
I think McConnell will do it too. I think that McConnell will, even though he doesn't like the whole thing, he's big on the voice vote. Yeah. He'll make them say it. Yep. Do it on record. Make them vote. I agree.
And the White House political director, Bill Stepien, who came out of Chris Christie's administration, is a tough guy. He's not gonna let anybody off the hook. And so I think they do force it, but I'm not sure anybody loses that much. I mean, you'd have to look state by state at who breaks on that. But, I mean, 60% of Americans say they don't like Trump using executive privilege to do that. But underneath those numbers, again, you have to ask how many people really don't care that much and want border security any way they can get it. I think that's a bigger number, frankly.
That's right. And they don't care about it on the issue of how it gets executive order or not, or national emergency or not. They're either supporting this or they're not, or they're not.
Right.
So
What do you think is going on with Mueller? It was 2 weeks ago. It's almost a comedy routine. Every time you ask me on the show, I say, I think about 6 more weeks. And, we've been saying that for half a year.
I wonder, actually, and people say that, who am I talking about here? You know, his track record is that he doesn't ever do anything publicly, and when he drops the bomb, he drops the bomb, right? He's just incredibly restrained and discreet. But I wonder if he was waiting for Barr's confirmation as Attorney General. I'm just making this up as you asked me, but which is interesting because Barr announced today that he will not recuse himself from the Russia investigation or from Mueller. So maybe not that he should, but I wonder if Mueller was waiting at all for the official confirmation of Barr and his swearing in. But other than that, I mean, listen, Roger Stone's done. Right. I wonder if if the next shoe to drop is going to be Donald Trump Jr. I don't know. Do you think it matters here? Does he play? Does he look at what's going on the Hill, for example, with Nadler today, and say, God, I got to do this before or after they're done with that, or is he on his own timetable?
It's a great question. I had thought that he held last week because the president was in North Korea, which I think would make sense. It's very old. That's the proper way to do it. then there's nothing coming down today. I think your bar theory is a pretty good one. But it's interesting, you talk about Jerry Nadler. I think it's a really good point that with this president who's so controversial and just lights up fire in so many people, I think it's really important that we decide what not to throw away in the process. Like, going after Trump's tax returns, enforcing that, I don't think he should go there. And Nadler's trying to also force the translator to turn over the notes of the conversation between President Trump and Putin. Now, I would love to know what's in that conversation, what's in those notes, but the precedent of that is awful. The precedent of both are awful.
Yeah.
You wonder how many norms are we going to throw away because of one presidency?
Well, I guess the flip side to that is the critics would tell you, how many norms are we going to throw away with this president?
It's true.
I guess that would be the other side of that coin. I don't know, but I will say this. I still don't think that the average person on the street is following point by point any of this stuff. I don't know how many converts there are to the Trump side. I mean, his approval, his numbers are up. I didn't look closely enough to see if they're up among Republicans who were angry at him for a while or not. Are they up with independents? They're certainly not up with any Democrats I talked to. So, is this just the base plus? I don't know what you think about that, but the rest of this stuff, I mean, really short of impeachment, I don't think I think Cohen was nothing but entertainment to the general public. They either cared and watched it for headlines or they didn't. But,
nothing that news that came out of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And things like Jared Kushner, like Trump insisting that Kushner got a security clearance. Nobody is surprised by that. Are you?
Nobody cares. No, nobody cares. I mean, maybe we should care, but we don't.
Right. So many things have been discredited from the dossier, the Steele dossier, that it does concern me that you just really don't know what to believe about anything anymore. And I don't say that with the fake news label on any of that. It's just, it's really hard to know when to pay attention to the fire. And maybe we'll find out soon. And I guess probably the Mueller stuff will be it. Do you agree with that? I mean, that's the real deal.
Yeah, or what's coming out of the Attorney General in New York, on the state side, and it could end up being one of those terribly dissatisfying things for everybody. Where I'm not equating the president with Al Capone, but Al Capone goes down on tax evasion, and there's like all this stuff that everybody's talking about him, and an accountant gets him at the end. That could be what ends up happening with the Trumps, with the whole family. Where what takes them down is the accountant, the forensic analysis of the businesses, and it may be after the presidency, but I suspect that is going to get him, and but I don't think it's going to knock him out of the office. If there's a Russia thing, if there's a real Russia thing, and we've talked about this, or I think anyway, if there's a Russia thing that shows that President Trump changed policy in order to benefit his standing with Vladimir Putin, I think that's lights out. I think people bail.
Well,
like
and
crazy.
I guess candidate Trump was actually deeply involved in negotiating with Putin on Trump Tower, even though then candidate Trump said he was not doing anything with Russia at all. Because engaging with a foreign power was an ultimate, and he lied about it. So he wasn't under oath, but I mean, for months he said he wasn't doing any business in Moscow. That's a big deal too.
And the point you make, of course, is whether he's under oath or not, and that's the question. But but barring something, he's not going to be any impeachment's not going to be confirmed. It's just it's got to be something really, really bad. And then, but I do think, I mean, it's been the Democrats just need to punch the ball in, and they're blowing it, which is kind of classic.
Yeah. They are. They really do. They chase or create every fire drill. It's just so dumb. They have no strategy, and they're holding a lot of cards right now, and they still really can't. They just can't even get to first base.
Yeah. But, I think the backlash against the hard left in the Democratic Party is starting early enough where they could fix themselves. They could adjust it.
I agree. They
fatal. They have time.
Yep, you're right about that. And they had a very good taste of it in November, and I think that's right. Well, you just listen. Look at how Nancy Pelosi and Nita Lowey and the leaders of the party in the House have been very effective, I think, in letting, when it's appropriate, going after Ocasio-Cortez, dealing with this anti-Israel / anti-Semitism going on with Congresswoman Omar,
right.
Dealing with the Green Deal. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right about that. I think what matters.
She's giving, and at some point she's going to double down on that, and you may get a schism in the Democratic Party. I bet, because I bet you there's people that will back her up, electeds, and that would be a very difficult thing for them. But Pelosi's obviously trying to manage it, and Madler is, and Schumer is, but it's a situation that could get out of control because there's a lot of anti-Semitism, coming from the left, no question, much more so than on the right. And if that leaks into the general debates, that could be tough. Because it speaks not just to Jewish Americans, but to lots of evangelicals.
And on a totally unrelated note, the Michael Jackson 2-part documentary on HBO, which has been getting a ton of attention. I just saw some clips and I saw some interviews with a couple of the guys who, the two lead, antagonists or victims, who was really what they were, who have come forward with the most explicit, disgusting, horrifying facts about their abuse at the hands of Michael Jackson. Where were the parents? Where was everybody else? Where were all these quote-unquote celebrities who knew all about it and didn't do anything? I mean, this is the worst kind of cover-up, and it was in plain sight.
And it was in plain sight. It's funny with who's Sharon Tate's husband?
Right. Yeah, Roman Polanski.
Roman Polanski, and I think with Kevin Spacey and with Bill Cosby and with others that have turned out to be creeps. You see like a society very easily pushing aside their work and just not watching it anymore. I don't see that with Michael Jackson. I still see people get excited when his music comes on. They don't want to know this stuff. They don't want to know it. They want to, they love the Jackson 5 and they loved Thriller, and they grew up dancing to it, and I don't think people want to know about it. I'm really glad that HBO put that out, and he's got to pay the piper for this, even posthumously.
Yeah, well, the estate certainly does, but you're absolutely right.
You know what I mean? Like I still see if Michael Jackson comes on the radio in my household, people, it's still like a acceptable thing. And, that's a debate people could have on whether you throw the art out with the sinner. But I think Michael Jackson people didn't want to know about. They didn't want to believe it.
But we're the parents. These kids slept in Michael Jackson's bed for days at a time. The parents knew. Yeah. In some cases, parents were home. They were in the house, and they let them. And they all wanted to they went for that's child abuse as much as what Michael Jackson did, in my view. Yeah, they all wanted celebrity. They were all bought off, both at the time and then later on for a cover-up. It's really, it's just, and this is going on this different level everywhere, but this is just horrifying.
I know. Between that and the Epstein stuff, and I think we actually have to finish up. I think we're running about a minute over right now. But
okay.
Those are stuff we should definitely follow on. I'll watch that Michael Jackson documentary before next week so I can talk about it intelligently. But between that and Epstein and so many and the church and other cases, it's just appalling how long this has gone on and how everybody looked away.
Yep.
We all looked away.
And it took a television documentary to get somewhere. Oh well.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
But on that note, that uplift note. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Liz, thank you so much for.
All right, so good to talk to you. Back next week.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Majesties over the fruited plain. But now wait a minute, I'm talking about America, sweet America.